Here were some of the projections from last season. You can see a disappointing year, obviously 5-7 for Texas A&M. Our projection actually had them at 9-3, and that projection was really going with the overall feeling on this Texas A&M team. You know what the general consensus was. I wasn't as high on them. I had them at 8-4. Didn't see 5-7 coming, obviously, but I did not really see this team being a team that was going to challenge in the SEC West. Again, I had them at 8-4, but 5-7. That was pretty rough. That was a pretty rough year last year. I know they lost a lot of close games. The FBI had them at 7.5 and 4.6. So they had them, they were not as high on them. More at 7-5, 8-4, not really near that 9-3 number like our projection. The over/under was at 8.5, which means Vegas thought 8-4 or 9-3 were the most likely scenarios for Texas A&M. If they had dropped, just think, if they had dropped that number to 7.5, think about how much money they would have made, because everyone pretty much probably would have gone over 7.5, but 8.5. That made it kind of tough to predict over/under for Texas A&M last year, but obviously they went way under that. So let's look at the projection for this year. Again, here's the schedule. This is the scale that we'll be using. If it's a 50-50 game, it'll be in the white, less than 20, over 80. Those are games where I think the spread will be 20 or more. 20-29, 71-80. Those are games where I think the spread will be double digits. 30-39, 61-70 games where I think the spread will be around a touchdown, 6, 7, 8 points. Kind of in that range. So we'll start with the easy wins. I think you've got New Mexico, ULM, Abilene Christian. 3 easy wins here on the schedule. No App State this year. I think A&M fans happy to see that. You don't have a team that really I think is capable of potentially being a surprise team. I mean, they should roll in all 3 of these games. Really, no doubt about it. Easy wins there in those 3. We'll go now to the games where I think they'll be favored by about a touchdown. I think Auburn and Mississippi State, because of the home field advantage. If those are on the road, I would call those 50-50 games, but playing at home, you look at the talent of this Texas A&M team, you look at how close they were last year, everything they have coming back this year. This is a team that is potentially going to be a preseason top 25 team. Auburn and Mississippi State, they might be pretty close to that, but again, home field advantage is the difference here. That's why I put these games in the purple. I do think A&M will be favored by 6 or 7 in both of these matchups. So now let's go to the games where I think they'll be underdogs. I think you've got Alabama, Tennessee, and LSU. So I think A&M will be about a touchdown underdog in all 3 of these games. Alabama at home gives A&M a chance. I don't think they're going to be huge underdogs, especially also if you just look at the way they've played Alabama in recent years. Tennessee on the road, that one's close for me, very close to being in the orange, because that's a tough place to play, and Tennessee is expected to be good again. But I don't have Tennessee quite in that top tier with Alabama, LSU, and Georgia this year. So that's why, I think the spread will be 8 or 9 in that game. LSU on the road, it seems to always be a crazy game. Never know what to expect. LSU, I think, definitely will be favored in that one, but just because of the history of this matchup, I think you have to put this one in the yellow. I don't think it'll be a double-digit spread, but it'll probably be 8 or 9 points in favor of LSU. And then that leaves you with 4 games: Miami, Arkansas, South Carolina, and Ole Miss. These are the 50-50 games, the games that I could see going either way. I think A&M is a better team than Miami, but they're playing that game on the road. The game was close last year. That's a 50-50 game, but I do think the Aggies will be favored. I think they'll be favored against Arkansas as well, but not by a lot. This game seems to always be close. I think the spread will be 3 or 4 in this one. Again, in favor of Texas A&M, but not a huge number. South Carolina, that's a tough one. We'll see how good they are. Probably would favor Texas A&M here as well because it's at home. But again, we're talking about a 3 or 4 point spread more than likely. And then Ole Miss on the road, that's basically a pick 'em. But I would say because it's on the road, maybe Ole Miss is favored by a field goal in that one. So yeah, all 4 of these games, really the games that could go either way. If they lose to Alabama, Tennessee, and LSU, and they lose these 50-50 games, then you're right back to 5-7. But if you win the 50-50 games, you're up to 9-3, and that's assuming you beat Auburn and Mississippi State. So you could see, 9-3, very possible. Then you could see 5-7 is possible. No guarantee you're going to beat Auburn and Mississippi State with those games being, here in the purple. Those are far from guaranteed wins. So it's a schedule that It's not horrible. Again, Miami the only test in the non-conference, but Tennessee out of the East and South Carolina out of the East. It's a pretty tough SEC schedule. So what is the projection here for Texas A&M? We'll take the games in white and use 50% for those, 35% for the games in the yellow, 65% for the games in purple. Count the green games as wins, and when you average all that out, you get a projection of 7-5. So 7-5 is the projection for Texas A&M. If you're just looking at the odds here between Alabama, Tennessee, and LSU, the odds would say that they maybe find a way to win one of those games and then lose the other two, and then they split the 50-50 games, Miami, Arkansas, South Carolina, and Ole Miss, and maybe split Auburn and Mississippi State, and that gets you to 7-5. I think 8-4 might be more likely than 6-6, but 7-5, a very fair projection given where Texas A&M finished last year and given this schedule. That is, again, the projection. 9-3 was the projection last year, so a lower projection this year for Texas A&M. Again, they were projected to go 7-5 in 2023.